5th Hour Radio Show.
Gloria, you've been singing gospel music for a long time. Before you met Bill, was this something you ever dreamed to be doing for a living? How did your singing career actually take off? I mean, what was the roots to your singing career?
Well, I really never had a singing career and never intended to, and still don't. So how?
Pretty humble there. A little bit, huh?
I was I was a French major and a sociology major and an English major in undergrad. Mm-hmm. And I did all of that. 2 of those I thought I was giving to God because I thought I would probably be serving in a foreign country, and I thought that it might be Africa, which has a lot of French base to a lot of dialects. So I was just preparing to be someplace around the globe. And then all of a sudden I was substituting in French at a local high school where the high school teacher had a mastectomy. I was a junior in college, 19 years old, mm-hmm. and the school called and wanted French teachers, which they couldn't find in our little rural agricultural county. And mm-hmm. so they called the college, and I drove over between classes to teach this lady's French classes. And then my trip to Africa and my whole vocational bent took a sharp turn, and I met Bill in the hallway at school. Mm-hmm. He was through school, had his master's, and had been teaching on the junior high level for a while, and changed to the high school where I was teaching French. And we met in the hallway and started talking mainly about politics and literature. And, of course, we shared a deep faith. And so we got acquainted and got married that next year, a year from then, and I finished my senior year in college. And then we started writing songs. We started writing kind of even before we were actually married. And then after that, Bill had written several things before he met me, but he didn't feel as strong about that, and he'd gone out of high school with a group thinking that he was going to go into gospel music, and mm-hmm. discovered, he thought, that his gifts were not good enough, that he wasn't going to make it. He wasn't good enough piano player, wasn't a good enough singer, and that he went home discouraged and starving to death, and decided, what am I going to do? And said, well, I know grammar. I'll go to college. So he went to college, and like 2 weeks after he started college, the Weatherfords, which was a big group at that time, that were associated with the Cathedral of Tomorrow in Akron, Ohio, called and said, we would like you to come play piano for us. And he told his dad excitedly, and his quiet farmer, tool and die maker dad said, I paid for the semester, you're going to finish the semester.
So when you first ran into him and met him, did you know, was there a spark there? Did you just know?
No, actually, I had a friend who loved gospel music. I did not. I was not a gospel music fan at all. I grew up in the church. My dad was a pastor. I played the piano on Wednesday nights like every preacher's kid. Mm-hmm. But I was not a pianist, and I was an alto, so I didn't have any aspirations to go sing anywhere. I was an academic and was much more interested in speech and oratory and in literature and writing. I wrote from the time I was a kid. So that was my background, and of course, relating to me, Bill talked about literature, and we found we had interest in politics, so we discussed politics a lot. And no, I didn't. I knew a lot of the gospel songs that had made their way into the church, but I was from Michigan, mm-hmm. so I definitely was not a Southern gospel fan at all. And Bill was directing a choir at the time. He had broken up his group, which was, he went back after that failure, he said, and got his master's in English, and was singing during all that time with his brother and sister, just around the area and all around the Midwest, and they were quite good. And Danny was amazing, and he then came back after we got married, and then I sang with Danny and Bill for 15 or 20 years. Yeah.
What do you think your first big break was into the gospel music world? The break that started getting the Gaither name out there to the public?
Well, everybody says was it when Elvis recorded "He Touched Me," and honestly, it was not. Doug Oldham probably was the biggest key at that time. He had come back to the Lord and was in our local church where Bill was directing the choir, and after he got his family put back together, he began to sing in the area. Bill played for him, and then the Imperials had just organized, they were really causing a lot of attention because they were considered, quote, contemporary at the time.
Yeah.
And they were taking a totally different bent at that time with Henry Slaughter and Jay Kess were really kind of going in a whole new direction and putting together a very, very finessed group, I would say, for Southern Gospel. And they recorded not only "He Touched Me," but several of our songs. And I remember getting a letter from Bill when I was staying home having a baby, and he said, "Honey, we just found out that the Imperials recorded 'He Touched Me.' If this keeps up, we shouldn't have to be doing this singing for any more than another year or so." That was 49 years ago.
Yeah.
So I bring that out and show it to him every once in a while.
Did you ever find yourself getting nervous, in front of the larger crowds in those early days? I mean, do you still get pre-performance jitters?
No, because I guess I don't really care if I succeed at that or not. And I'll tell you what I did get, though. I was not a singer, per se. Like I said, I was an alto. I sang in church. I had music lessons like most kids. But I didn't want to do this. And Bill, I remember the day he called me into the piano and said, "This isn't working. I'm putting together one kind of a group and another after his brother and sister had left." And he said, "I'm used to a family group. You need to do this with me." And I said, "I can't sing that well." And he said, "I know you can't, but you talk on pitch."
Oh, no.
No, actually, he didn't say that. I made that up. He did say, however, "Honey, when you communicate, something incredible happens to people, and I can teach you the music." And the interesting thing about that is that was what I was headed for in the first place, was speech and forensics, and that's what I loved. And, of course, the writing. And so I was a writer before I met Bill, and it was just a real natural thing then for us to get an idea. And we have always been idea-driven from day one. We always are frustrated in any setting or context and say, "Oh, there should be a song that says this. Where's the song that nails this?" And so we always start with a vacuum, something that we feel should be written. So we're idea-driven. And so he would get a musical feel that he thought fit that idea. And then as soon as I had, of course, the idea and the package it was going to come in, I could write the song.
What about life's priorities? Has the idea of what that is changed for you from the beginning of your career until now?
Yes. I'm sorry, I choked on something here.
That's okay.
Actually, I think if you laid our songs end to end, you would find our own personal pilgrimage. And it's really interesting now, looking back, because a lot of the songs that have stuck to the wall have been at certain junctures in our lives. Because he lives, for instance, we wrote when our third baby was born. And that baby's now 43. And that's probably been the biggest song worldwide, globally. That's been translated into more languages and probably been used more than any other single song. And to us, that's sort of ironic because it was so personal. We wrote it at the end of the 60s, and we had 2 little children. And if you remember, the whole racial thing, we just were watching a documentary the other day on Kennedy, and that Watts was burning to the ground. Professors were giving LSD to their kids as a spiritual experience. It was just like, okay,
wild times, that's for sure.
It was really wild times, and the whole drug culture. I mean, we never heard of such a thing, And we would look at each other and say, who in their right mind would have a baby at this time? I mean, if it's like this now, what is this child going to face when he is 16 or 17? And we were very depressed, not about the baby, but about the times. And Bill got mono right about then. And so I don't know if you have ever experienced that, but it makes you so,
so lethargic and tired. Yeah, that's what I.
Yeah, so it depleted that everything looks too big. And he was really down, and we didn't write a song for a long time. And then we came through that, and in July our baby was born. And it was one of those aha moments when you look at this little child and this precious baby that is perfect, and you look and say, you know what? People don't get married and have kids and go on with their lives because the world is stable. When has it ever been stable? You do that because we really believe that the resurrection is a principle of life. I mean, it just is everywhere.
Speaking of that, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but
that's okay.
I want to go outside the box a little bit and ask you your thoughts on the secret of a happy marriage. I know you and Bill have been married for so long, and my grandparents were married for over 50 years, and it always amazed me, how two people could argue so much, but still keep those vows so sacred. You know what I mean?
I think I never worry about people if they're still arguing. It's when you're not, when you're silent. Lethargic is not a good thing. When you quit talking. I know for us, we have done everything together. I wouldn't recommend our formula to anybody, maybe. But I think a lot of couples, they have separate vocations or separate jobs, and they get up in the morning and go separate ways. And when they come home, they don't necessarily talk about what they've spent the whole day doing. For us, we had a different challenge. I mean, we wrote together, we sang together, we rode together, we traveled together with lots of other people on the bus. We had children together. That is a challenge. And in our case, we were critiques of each other's art. So to criticize somebody else's art is touchy anyway, and when it's your husband and wife, that gets, we just well, that tune isn't quite good enough, or that lyric isn't quite strong enough, or whatever. But the good thing about that is that we did grow in the same direction. We grew together in the same directions. And we have always been on the same page about life values and where we were headed and what we wanted. Our structure was God comes first, our marriage comes second, our kids come third, and if there's any energy left after that, we'll save the world.
It takes up a lot of energy right there.
Yeah,
that's for sure. So outside of singing, songwriting, the books, how do you enjoy your downtime? Do you have any hobbies? Do you favorite TV shows, anything like that?
Well, Bill, people often ask Bill if he's going to retire, and he says, and do what? Because
you don't know what else to do, huh? He's been doing it for so long.
We love what we do. Yeah, we still write songs. We create videos. We do. We come up with great ideas, and between us, we can pretty much pull them off. I can write scripts. I can write lyrics. I can write TV, monologues if I need to. And he is just incredibly entrepreneurial. He's like a great coach. He loves putting together the right combination of people and talent to make more than the sum of the parts.
Your music has touched so many people's lives, and there's no question about that. How do you keep your passion so strong for what you're doing?
Well, often writers ask us, I haven't written for a while, should I be worried? Is my writing over? And I always say, don't worry if you're not writing. Worry if you're not growing. Because if you're growing, out of your growth, you will become your art, whatever it is. That's how artists express their growth. It's how they express what's happening in their lives. So if nothing's happening, and of course I'm a big reader, I read constantly and I read widely. I want things that expand my mind and make me think in new directions. I love great poetry. I love great literature. And I just, I think that anytime you're growing, then that affects your personal life. Like, oh, I got to deal with that. Where'd that come from? Mm-hmm. And so it makes you change. It makes you debate. It makes you argue with God sometimes. It makes you question society. And I don't know which is more sacred, my time that I read the scriptures in the morning, or the time I'm watching the news, or the time I'm listening to children who say amazingly profound things.
Oh, yeah. I got a 2-year-old. I know exactly what you mean.
They are. They do. That you just need to listen, because they are a fresh new eyes.
Yeah, they're so innocent, and the
eyes.
things they say are just so honest and truthful, and it's
yeah, and it usually is about you.
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, hello.
Well, as long as other people can't hear it, it's just me.
And I love nature too. I think sometimes we get too urban, and I think that dealing with people in urban settings is always refreshing too. We love that. But if you can't get away, I think our society is dying for want of two things: solitude and passion.
Why do you think that?
I think they're living on distractions. And so if you don't concentrate, if you don't focus on things that are real, like your children, like nature, like what's going on in the world around you, then you're always distracted, so you never can grow. You never can pay attention. We're good at making noise so that we don't have to hear our own hearts.
Yeah, some writer wrote, "The world is too much with us."
Late and soon, getting and spending, we lay waste our powers. Oh, good, yeah. I have a wonderful mentor, and she's now starting in another year her 10th decade. And every decade she tells me that she asks God for the theme that he wants her to live out in this decade. She has a lot of wise insights in that. But one of the things she says is, most people get into trouble for two reasons. They let go of things they should hang on to, and hang on to things they should let go of. And you think about that a little bit, and it's really, really true.
Yeah.
That sometimes, we hang on to stuff that are non-essential, that thus the phrase meaningless traditions. If they're meaningless, we let them get that way, because we didn't tell the story. We didn't tell why. I don't ever go to a graduation or a wedding or an anniversary party or any big event like that and not get just screamingly frustrated because nobody is saying what we're doing here.
Mm-hmm. Like you said, everybody's distracted.
And we don't want to be reminded, I think. Weddings just freak me out, because you go to a reception and here are these two wildly different families and extended families, and this couple that have not a clue what they're walking into. and nobody is saying, unless a miracle takes place here, the idea that these two families will become one family, that these two families will hold these kids to account, that these two families will support what is needed here, sign up to help with the children, sign up to encourage, sign up to sometimes pressure them to stay together. We need a contract for all the people at the reception or something.
I never thought about that. I never thought about that. Most people, when they get married nowadays, and I might be guilty of that too, when me and my wife got married, it was more about planning the party, more about planning the reception than actually thinking about what you were actually doing at the time.
Yeah, and if you think of most weddings, they turn out so badly that the marriage has no place to go but up.
Yeah. That's all I'm going to say to that. I got one more question for you before we get you. You've been on with us for so long. You've won so many awards for your singing, your songwriting. And I want to ask, is it the awards that justify a performer's success? Or in your case, is it something different?
No, I don't ever know why we get awards, and I don't know why we don't.
So awards don't really mean that much to you?
No, they do not. And I know that half of what people call success is just the random luck of stylistic changes. that we have been at this for 50 years and we're still viable and can still fill buildings is got to be something besides the music and the performance. It's got to be that somebody that you connect in some way. Mm-hmm. You look at the artists that have stayed around for more than 5 years, and that's about the span for most pop, religious, jazz, any artist. The ones that have stayed around are usually writers.
Mm-hmm. They know what they're singing. They feel what they're singing.
And they're not necessarily great singers.
Mm-mm.
I mean,
you don't have to be a great singer to be a great performer. I mean, not to get out of the gospel range, but Mick Jagger.
Well, you look at people like Neil Diamond, Billy Joel, the great folk singers.
Some people even say Willie Nelson's not a great singer.
Oh, he's a horrible singer. but that's part of the charm of it. But great singers have usually been writers, so they communicate. It's about communication, not about singing necessarily. I mean, we want it to sound nice, and it's nice if you have great voices, which we do in the homecoming circle. But neither of those voices are Bill's or mine. It's because of the happening. It's because of those performers, and I say that loosely because I think they consider themselves much more communicators than performers. But some of them are amazing musicians. They are. But what you want to know if you're sitting out there, and I want to know when I'm sitting out watching anybody, is do they get along in the bus? What happens when they go home? Mm-hmm. Do they take out the trash? I think that the number one letter, honestly, that we have gotten from the homecoming, the whole homecoming phenomenon, which to us is like this last little hurrah in our career, because it didn't start till 1990 when we thought we were hanging it up. And we said, well, let's do one more album and say thank you to the people that brought us to the party. So, but that whole whatever that was that happened totally by accident. The letters that we have gotten after all these millions of performances and all these hundreds of artists involved has been, you guys look like you really love each other. Isn't that a funny comment? And it really is true. I mean, you can't hide that. People can look at a stage and know that it feels good or it doesn't feel good, but they don't often know why. But these people really do like each other, and they take care of each other's kids, and they pray for each other's teenagers, and they're the real deal. And whether you know that or not, when you're sitting in the audience, you know whether it connects with you or not.
Well, Gloria, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I know you're a busy, busy woman.
Well, I hope to get my office moved here.
Well, I hope you do too. I hope that goes smooth for you. Moving's never fun. Never.
Yeah. Well, if you've been at it for 50 years like we have, it's good to move your space. Sometimes it makes you have new ideas.
You're probably used to that, though, being on the road, moving around all the time.
Yeah, but we like being home, and we're always home during the week, almost always, and always have been. So my kids and grandkids are more important.
Yeah, that's true. Hey, could you give us all our listeners a little taste of where they could go to find out more information about you and your career, like website, social media, and stuff like that?
Absolutely. Just go to gaither.com, and you'll have all kinds of options. You can go to artists, and you will find me and lots of the other artists. You can Google us and find bios and that kind of thing. But Gaither.com will give you tour dates, concert locations, events coming up. And if anybody's coming through Indiana, I hope you stop at Gaither Family Resources. We're right in the middle of the cornfields, so you'll come here on purpose.
This has been one of the highlights of my career so far, speaking with you.
Oh, well, you're wonderful. Thank you for letting me be on.
The 25th Hour Radio Show.